Hey gaming fans, so today is a Yu-Gi-Oh card talk, and I just want to talk about Jinzo. Jinzo was a popular, obviously, character of the anime, and always has been quite, an iconic card. And I remember when I first ever seen Jinzo, this was the one I pulled. It was actually from one of the Japanese packs that I bought at one of those exhibitions, and I had no idea what it was. I had to look it up in the, like at the time I had a magazine that had all those uh, card lists from those Japanese sets, and they label him as Android Psycho Shocker, and that he negated all traps on the field. And I always thought that, well, that's pretty powerful. And then eventually, we got our real Jinzo, which hit, in the stores in the Pharaoh's Servant set. And anybody that actually played this guy during those days had, an advantage over a lot of the decks of the time. And that's because people were playing things like Mirror Force and Trap Hole and Bottomless Trap Holes and, Torrential Tributes and Ring of Destruction and even things like Imperial Order. So if your deck was chock full of those traps and Jinzo came down, you were pretty much done. I mean, there wasn't a lot you could do. And Jinzo was pretty popular because, the only other tribute monsters that people might have played during those days would have been Summon Skull. And that's because, it's a beefy 2500 monster, but it's a vanilla monster, and it was definitely a lot better than trying to pull out these guys, the Red Eyes Black Dragon, which was smaller, was actually Jinzo's size, 2400 attack, or Dark Magician. I mean, there was no way to really pull these guys out without actually tribute summoning them. So this card actually, was the bane of a lot of decks when people were playing it. So much so that he ended up getting banned, or not banned, but restricted to one, I should say. Even though there wasn't much support for him. I mean, sure, you could use cards like Witch of the Black Forest, and that's probably what helped make him banned in the first, or I keep saying banned, restricted to one in the first place, because Witch of the Black Forest searches out a monster with 1500 or less defense, and Jinzo has 1500 defense. There was other cards that did come out to try and support him, like Amplifier, which I don't know if, I remember pulling this card thinking, well, this is kind of cool, but at the time, you're thinking, well, if you're going to be playing Jinzo in your deck, even when Jinzo came to 3, would you really be playing a lot of traps, because Jinzo negates traps? The only trap that I ever thought would be worthy of playing in a Jinzo deck would be Call of the Haunted, because then if you have that set and your opponent destroys your Jinzo, you flip Call of the Haunted, you special summon your Jinzo, and now he's not worried about Call of the Haunted being destroyed by a simple MST, because he's negating Call of the Haunted anyways. So that was the only trap that I ever thought I would ever run in a Jinzo deck. I don't know, maybe some people were more courageous and they didn't. There were other Jinzo cards, though. I mean, there was Jinzo number 7, which came out, I think this was, MRD? This card is really just one of those attack directly cards. There was a whole slew of them. The little tiny guys, 500 attack, some of them were 4, some of them were 7, and they all just attack directly, and that's all they did. The only thing that was cool about this guy is you can machine duplicate him, because he's 500 attack for a machine monster. But even still, you're going to end up with 5 little guys that'll just get killed next turn. Then we also had a Jinzo Returner, which kind of made the deck a little bit more fun. This card can attack your opponent directly, and when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Jinzo from your graveyard during your end phase. So you had to try and figure out a way to get him into the graveyard, like Foolish Burial or something like that. It was an okay card. Unfortunately, they made him 600. I think they did that on purpose, so you couldn't machine dupe him like you could with Jinzo number 7. Of course, then we ended up with Jinzo Jector, which now made Jinzo a little bit more viable, because this card's name becomes Jinzo while it's face up on the field or in the graveyard. You contribute this card to add one Jinzo monster from your deck to your hand, except Jinzo Jector, and then reveal all set cards your opponent, spell or trap zones, and if there are any trap cards, you can special summon one Jinzo monster from your hand up to the number of those trap cards revealed, and you can only use this effect once per turn. So again, it's really going to depend on if your opponent is playing traps, but it's still a pretty cool monster in a good design for pulling out a very specific monster if you're going to build a whole deck around Jinzo. There was also Jinzo Lord, which, you know, it's okay. It's really just a pumped up Jinzo. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card cannot be special summoned except by sending one face-up Jinzo you control to the graveyard. So it's cool that this guy actually counts as Jinzo now, so you can actually send him to the graveyard to special summon Jinzo Lord. But really, I mean, it's trap cards cannot be activated, and the effects of trap cards on the field are negated, so he's pretty much just Jinzo. And then once per turn, you can destroy all face-up trap cards, inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each trap card destroyed. Now, the problem with that is, you know, a lot of the times traps aren't face-up on the field. Most traps that people play are like quick, or, you know, they're counter traps, or they're traps, they're one-time use traps. So I don't know if you'd really ever get that out of there. And it's only 2,600, which is a bummer because the original Jinzo is 24. So you'd hope that this guy would at least be, say, maybe 3K to make it worth your investment to actually summon him. But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to talk about Jinzo because it was fun. And I do remember back in the day, it was a hard card to get because it was only in Pharaoh's Servant. But eventually they, this is not the same tin, this is the Red Eyes tin. But they did come out with a tin with Jinzo on it, and he came in the tin. And I remember at the time, everybody calling him a Tinzo. So, so once that happened, I believe this one is the tin one. Once that happened, everybody had Jinzo in their deck. So it kind of made you think twice about running traps. Obviously, today, Jinzo isn't the powerhouse he used to be. A lot of people don't even run traps, and if they do, it's like 1 or 2 traps or like a few counter traps. And if you're running Solemn Judgment, you can just Solemn Judgment this guy, so he won't even hit the field anyways. And his 2400 attack body isn't going to do anything in today's format. That being said, there is some new support coming out from the time I'm recording this video. We haven't got it yet, but there's going to be a continuous spell, and there's going to be another Jinzo monster. So I think there's even an XYZ monster, if I recall. But yeah, just fun to talk about Jinzo. He was one of those cool monsters. He was Joey's monster for a while after he beat Esparoba in the cartoon, and he became a staple for a lot of people. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Let me know what you think of Jinzo, one of my favorite monsters from the series, and I always like to hear what you have to say. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.